Welcome to my little space, where heart and hook stitch up a place where we can together make a refuge, safe for all our sake. This is the vest that I mostly showed making in my last video, but I hadn't gotten around to photographing it yet. So here are my slow motion captures, which I think are really fun to show off the fringe. And then after this, I'll show you my next Nana that I made and photographed, Nana Frida. Now, this is named after Frida Kahlo, and it reminded me of when 5 years ago I made my first Frida doll based on somebody's request. Now, when I get a doll request, I get out yarns that I'm thinking of using. I take a photograph of all of them and I send the photograph to the customer to get confirmation that they like the colors selection. Stuff like skin tone and hair tone are all very important too. And I confirmed everything that the customer agreed with, and I went ahead and made my Frida doll. And it led to one singular person online trying to call me out for whitewashing Frida. Now, first of all, when I was looking up photos for reference of Frida, of course, mostly what I'm finding are black and white images. And in those black and white images, she looks very pale. However, there are colored photographs, and I don't know if there must have been color photography then. But any photos that, maybe there weren't. Any photos that did have color were certainly, they looked like the color had been added, and they pretty much made her look pretty light peach skin. And so here, I'm going to show you my Frida doll that I made 5 years ago that sparked this controversy. I was curious, why does she look so pale in all these photos that I was finding? And it turns out that even though she was born in Mexico City, she was not of Mexican origin. Her mother came from a Spanish military family, and her father was born in Germany to a father who was a jeweler and goldsmith and a mother from the German bourgeoisie. So ethnically, she's European, Spanish and German. I do find it interesting that the only other time I angered someone about a skin tone on my dolls was someone that was offended by my black mermaids. One person thinks I want to take everything fair-skinned and make it brown. The other person thinks I want to whitewash brown people. I'm just trying to find the closest yarn that I have available to represent the person that I'm dollifying. It's as simple as that. Fresh off the hook, I finished this gal last night. She has sparkly shoes. And what I did is I used all the yarns that I had set aside for her in her outfit here. And then last minute, I made a decision to add a flower in her hair. And that wasn't part of the original listing. But I did do this a lot on a lot of my dolls. And so what I did is I was going to do it with this color that I didn't use all that much in this doll. But then I decided I would grab these yarns that I set aside for the next doll for her flower. And then I'll do the same thing so that each doll has a little bit of the other. So this doll that has only a little bit of this yarn, I will use that to make a flower for the other doll's hair. And so here, you saw in my last chapter that I made the two heads at the same time. Her hair, she's just got so much hair. It wants to go in her face. Isn't she cute though? So I made the two heads at the same time, as similar as possible, basically the same. And for this doll, I just got started on coming down for the torso this morning. I had 5 yarns set aside for the colors of her body, or for her outfit. So I have the stripes coming down, and I decided to do them skinnier stripes, so just one row of each color, as opposed to this one that I did 2 rows of each color. Just trying to change it up a little bit, make them a little bit different, even though I'm using basically the same doll design. This one is going to have an afro though, instead of the longer curls. And I came up with a plan for using this yarn. As you can see, this yarn is in the second row down here. Right here, it's sort of in the blue stage, slightly transitioning to purple. So what I'm going to do, now that I've gotten back to the first yarn again in the sequence, before I use this again in the next row, I'm going to use this for the sleeves color and the leggings color. So I'm going to use this to make one arm, because I would love to see the different colors as much as I can in the dress. So I'm going to use this to make one arm, and as you can see, it'll be mostly purple, maybe purple and blue. I'm not sure how much yarn that will go through. And then I'll do the next stripe. And then I'll do the other stripes in sequence, and before I get to the next stripe of this color, I'll do the other arm. And then I'll do like that, and then the legs too. So I'll divvy up when I do the stripes in the body and the arms / legs, so that we get some mixture of all these colors throughout the doll. Hopefully that made sense. I'll show you as I go progress pictures, so you'll maybe understand if that was confusing. But yeah, there she is. So yeah, now that I'm editing this video and doing these voiceovers and telling you my stories, it is making me laugh that I got accused of whitewashing when the vast majority of the dolls that I make are actually with this particular brown shade of yarn. That's kind of just the niche that I fell into on Etsy. I've kind of told my story before about that, but yeah, the first doll the reason I was inspired to start making dolls was because of my black niece and her mom telling me that it was hard to find a black doll. So it just so happened that that is how my shop took off on Etsy, and that kind of became my niche for a while. And I don't know what percentage of dolls I've made that have brown skin, but it's a very high percentage. So here I'm making an arm, and for some reason I thought you would want to see me crochet an arm in real time. If you're a crocheter, I like to start with a double magic circle. And if you don't know what that is, it is just more secure than a single magic circle. And there are plenty of easy tutorials to find on that. But so this is real-time crochet. I will go ahead and speed up the rest of this, and you can watch the arm develop. In case anybody's wondering, I do have a couple doll patterns available in my shop that have the basic same body as these dolls. The only difference is that back when I wrote those patterns, however many years ago that was, it was a lot of years ago, I was doing the hair differently. I would make the curls individually and stitch each one on individually, and then have to hide all the ends inside the head or under the wig cap. But now, the only difference is that now, other than I also now change the lengths of the curls depending, and whether it's the longer curls doll that I've just made or this afro style that I'm doing now, it's the same curl calculations. It's the same curl like stitch counts. It's just starting with a longer chain or a shorter chain. So if anybody's interested specifically, I can tell you exactly like what stitch counts I did for which dolls. But what I do now is the same as I showed in one of my recent videos. I don't remember if it was the last one or the one before, where I was showing stitching on the curls onto my mini Justice Katanji Brown Jackson doll. So what I do, and I do it the same way for these dolls now, so I don't have all these individual curls to stitch on. I just make a whole string of curls, as you could see too in one of my progress photos earlier in this video, with a few chains in between. And then when I start stitching them on, I start at the center of the wig cap and follow the spiral around. Now, with the doll with the longer curls that I just made, I stitch into every other row of the wig cap, so they're a little farther separated. For the afro, I do more curls and I stitch into every row. And then I have different calculation or different numbers of stitches that I skip going around the spiral. So like I went into every fourth stitch in every other row for the longer haired doll. And then I went into every fifth stitch in every round for the afro. So it's, it kind of, you can play with it the way you want. If you stitch into every 3 stitches, you'll have to make a lot more curls and the hair will be a lot thicker. You can make it more sparse though too. You can make the curls longer or shorter. You can make just tiny little curls. You can make a tiny little afro. The point is you can adapt the pattern to make the hairstyle you like, but the basic doll pattern is available in my shop. I know I already talked in my last video about attending the No Kings protest, but check out these photos that Chrislyn Peterson, a photographer who was there documenting it, sent me. One is my sign and the other is somebody wearing one of the hearts that I passed out. And then I have my own little mini protest going on where I'm putting stamps on upside down. I don't use stamps very often for anything, so it's a very mini protest. So here we have the completed dolls. This is what you get when you tell me I have complete artistic freedom to make the dolls for 2 little girls who are totally into pink and girly things. So I went with pink and girly for both of them, and they are both unique. They each have a little bit of the other doll's colors in their flowers. Hi, Willie. Well, I got an order for another tongue-tied mouth puppet, so these I have pre-made. These are for making, looks like I have after this one, 1, 2, 3, 4 more mouth puppets that I could make. These are pre-made, just the flaps that I can either finish with teeth and a tongue or with no teeth and a tongue and buttons for my tongue ties version. And I have all these buttons sitting here ready. So I'm just going to pick one at random because this person didn't specify button color. So let's see. That one. So I'll have to find 2 more just like that. And just to show you, in this drawer, I also have these gloves that I made from my handspun yarn. Here's a Tim Walls and a Shakespeare and some clothes I'm saving for my daughter in the future, possibly. So there we have it. I've got the tongue made, these little back hinge pieces, and the buttons and the little button loops. So this puppet is done and ready to go. And I thought I'd show you my little staging area. These two dolls are ready to ship, so now this puppet is ready to ship too. And I will be shipping probably on Monday. Today is Friday, so maybe I'll have something else to add to the pile before then. Okay, all current orders have been made, and so now I can get back to making more of these maybe. Here's the second one with my hand spun yarn. I was trying to turn the camera around mid-recording and I guess I can't do that. This is my latest skein that I've made and it still needs to be finished, but before finishing that I thought I would wait until I got around to making some more. So now I have the luxury of getting out my sort of pet project. Here's my bag of scraps. You see all the pinks there and the brown and the black? Those are from the dolls that I just made. Some pinks there from the mouth puppet too. But now I will get to doing some of this. I'm actually going to be very meticulous this time and time myself for the whole process of making one skein. This next skein, I will time it so that I can price out this one skein because I got a question, would I be considering selling any of this yarn? And I said, yeah, I would totally consider it. However, it takes so long to make one skein like that actually is not that much yarn that I don't think anybody would want to pay what I would charge. But we'll see. I'll time myself making the skein so I can let her know. And if she doesn't in fact want to buy it, it will go towards making more squares. So these are going to be my own project, my own blanket for my own sake, and they will be made entirely of the scraps of every project that I've been working on since I started this project, at least. I have officially decided not only am I timing one whole skein making process, I'm also going to put the whole thing on time lapse. So we will have one skein from start to finish that's been timed and recorded on time lapse video. So here's my first roll lag that I just made. So pretty. And it's going to kind of transition from kind of a brownish to a reddish to like a pastel-y pink and blue kind of thing. All right, so handy dandy spindle. Just showing it off again. It's got that flower of life motif on it. Like so many of the designs I like to make. All right, here we go. So there's the first roll lag on the spindle. As you can see, you can only see the outside of the last part that I spun, which is the kind of pastel colors. But if you get into this, these things are going to be your best friend. And I just put my mic on, so I'm not going to thoroughly do it right now. But it particularly gets on the side where I'm holding the roll lag up, like on my clothes here, and then on my legs down here too, and on my chair. So, and it'll stick to your chapstick and go up your nose. But it's all in the name of reclaiming our scrap yarn, or scraps, to make new pretty yarn. So I should be able to get, I think, 2 more roll lags about that size onto this spindle. So I have to do that whole process 2 more times before I have my full single for a skein, before I thread ply it. I considered using some of this yarn without thread plying it, but I really like the idea of having it thread plied because that really helps to bind it and give it some extra structure and strength, since this is so nubby, and I think it's kind of delicate as just a single. So, hi Willie. Willie. There's Willie. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Come here. Come here. Oh. There's Willie. Yeah. Okay. Well, here I have my second roll lag, and fun fact, this one has a lot of this white eyelash yarn, which sometimes it kind of shreds apart, but usually it doesn't. But it's really, really easy to incorporate into the twist because it has all the little eyelashes that catch in the twist. So you probably couldn't necessarily see it in the time lapse, but I had left some of these strands of these white eyelash yarn long when I put them in the bag, and I trimmed them short just now over the board because I don't want to trim them unless it's either over my bag or over something that's going to catch, because it makes a lot of extra fuzz. But I skipped the fun fact. The fun fact is that all this white eyelash yarn is from the batch making of Bernie dolls that I've been doing recently. So this also has a lot of black and this dark blue. What was the dark blue from? That wasn't from the Bernies. It doesn't matter. There's some like sparkly silver strands in there. That's from the Bernies. And so yeah, there we go. Next, I will start with the pink end, I think. Yeah. I'm doing it in order. It really doesn't matter, but I'm doing it in the order of clumps that I grab out and fluff up. And then I lay them on the board, kind of in that order as well, so that we do have this gradation that's happening, which I quite like. So I'll start a new time lapse and get a second roll lag on my spindle. Apologies if the lighting change bothers you. It's obviously dark outside right now, whereas it was sunlight earlier. But I've got the second roll lag onto the spindle. And I'm going to get one more. I'm not going to dive into that right this second. I think I might take a little break from this and start my next Nana. So I already got out yarns and I organized them from smallest to largest scrap ball, and I'll get going on that now for a little bit so that I can kind of like rest my muscles from the muscles and the bones that get a lot of wear and tear from the shredding and then the spinning. So change it up a little bit so I don't make myself sore. But this is fun and exciting. I love it. Another day, another roll lag. And look at Willie totally photobombing until I covered him up there. All right, you watched me in time lapse just now make my third roll lag for this spindle, for this skein. I think this is the prettiest one of the three. So I'll add it onto here and then we'll see what it looks like. There, that's 3 roll lags on here. That's all I want to put on here before I thread ply it. Maybe I could squeeze more, but I don't think I want to. So the timing, that I figure out for this skein, I'll figure out what that would be per ounce or gram, and then I can just, if anybody's ever interested again, and if I have a skein available, I can weigh it and see how much it should cost. And I'll go through the breakdown of how I'm going to do the pricing when I get to there for you. But yeah, there you have it. And then just since I'm wearing them, I thought I'd show you these little bear earrings that my parents gave me. Here, I'll take one off so I can show it much more up close. They are silver, and my parents were at Monument Valley, and they came across some Navajo ladies that were selling their jewelry. There's this one too. It's a bear as well in turquoise, and it's just like a little memory wire. So the bear is supposed to symbolize strength and courage. You can think like Mama Bear. And it was a fitting gift for me because at the time that they gave them to me, I was still going through my divorce. So when I wear these, I feel strong and courageous. And if you see me posting all my crochet stuff, you'll see that I wear this a lot. I've worn this bracelet a lot. And I think, and then I was also just going to say I got ahead and I went ahead and started on my next Nana. This Nana is named after Gene Wilder, or it will be when she's finished. She's pretty wild so far. Wild. This yarn is pretty wild. Okay, so next step is to take this off the spindle. I'm going to roll it into a little ball, and then I will thread ply it. So let's roll it into a ball. I got a little more work done on this Nana that will be named after Gene Wilder. So just showing that off for a second, but I am now coming back to my yarn and I'm going to thread ply it. I'm not sure how much thread I'm going to go through, and as you can see, this is getting low. So I have another bobbin of it right here that I will, if I need to tie it off and add more length, I'll do that with that. So I am ready now to start my stopwatch on my backup phone and start a time lapse to ply my yarn with the thread. So, yay. Okay, so I finished spinning. Pardon me. I'm drinking jasmine iced tea. I finished the last spinning step of this yarn, which was thread plying it. That always takes longer than I remember it's going to take, because that was 3 spins worth of roll-lags. So each one took like around like a half an hour or something. This took more like an hour and a half. And so yeah, that's a long time to be sitting and doing the same repetitive motion. So I just had to get up, and I thought I'd show you this. If you don't have one of these, I recommend it. This might be too intense for most people who are not used to rolling out their muscles, but you roll your back on this on the floor. It's called a rumble roller. I am not sponsored in any way, but I always have to have this around me. This or like a couple massage balls, one or the other at least, so I can work out my tight back muscles a little bit. So anyway, I had to take a minute to stretch and roll on the ground with that. And then the next step will be to take this off the spindle. I'm going to wrap it around here because I still don't have a niddy noddy. So I'm still not going to really be able to calculate yardage. I'm just going to go by gram. And then the finishing of the yarn. I will not include the time it takes to finish the yarn in my pricing scheme, because it just involves putting it in a bowl of water to soak for a while. And that's like just a couple minutes worth of my time to get it in the bowl. And then it's another couple minutes worth of my time to thwack it out and then let it air dry. So I'm not even going to count any of that. Plus, who knows, like I might actually pay somebody to finish their yarn, because it's nice to get out pent up anxiety and aggression. So I will do that now. once they dried completely, I photographed my 2 completed skeins that I do have them available if anybody is interested in purchasing them, but I won't hold my breath for very long. I will add them to my blanket project before too long if nobody expresses interest, which I don't expect because they're quite expensive. I'm going to do that breakdown for you on how I do my pricing now. So I'll go over my math here that I have jotted down on this piece of paper. The first couple steps are to weigh the yarn, which I did, and it was 61 grams, and then to total all the time grabs that I did for the chunks of time making the yarn. So it ended up being 5.08 total hours. In case you haven't heard already how I do my pricing scheme, I give a sliding scale, basically a choose your own price, but within a range. So I will accept as little as $10 an hour, and this is how I calculate my bottom price. I take the $10, so 10, multiply that by the number of hours it took. So 10 times 5.08 equals 50.8. And then I'm going to add in the cost of shipping, which I have set at about $7. So $7 should cover the cost of shipping and the time it takes to like package up and get it to the post office. And the reason there's a 0.2 is because I'm also adding 20 cents for the listing fee for Etsy. So that brings the total to 58. And then I multiply it by 1.065 because that adds in the 6.5% that Etsy keeps on top of every sale. And then that brings the total to 61.77. So that price accounts for all the fees involved that I have to pay, and it pays me a $10 an hour wage after that. Keep in mind, normally if I'm pricing something else, I include the cost of, say, materials if I'm making something. However, for this, I'm not including any cost of materials because I'm using my scraps, and then I'm also thread plying it. Yes, that is worth something, but I don't want to try to figure out. It's minuscule because most of the thread that I get secondhand in bulk for super cheap anyway. And then it's really a minuscule amount of that thread for one of these skeins. So I'm not going to worry about that. In my Etsy listings, I like to tell people at what point they're paying me what kinds of wage. So the next kind of wage that somebody might be able to see that I'm getting would be the California minimum wage this year, 2025, which is $16.50 an hour. I do the same exact calculations. You could pause the screen and take a screenshot if you want to see. And that totals to 96.94. And then the next delineated tier that a person can see whether they'd like to pay me this wage is what I call artist wage. And this is the average wage for crochet artists for hire in California. And so the price for this skein that would pay me that is $114.63. And then I have it topped out at what I call a living wage because I just Googled what's the average living wage for somebody in California. And that is actually $27.32. It sounds crazy to me, but yes, that's the actual living wage for people in California. And the price for the skein would be $155.47. Now, I never ever expect anybody to pay me the top price in my range. The bottom price is okay by me. I am very grateful because I know how expensive even my bottom pricing is. But this is the nature of special handmade items. So $62 for a skein, it sounds crazy to me because I can't afford to buy things like that. But if you want something handmade and you would get a kick out of having something, custom made by me, that this is a one-of-a-kind item that will never exist again, then somebody might be interested. So let me know. But that is why all of my items are the prices that they are, because I run this scheme of all the math for everything that I sell, whether it's crocheted or obviously now hand spun, which, like I said, still not expecting to sell. But I can see how people will pay those prices for things like my dolls, the custom dolls, because that can be really special in a child's life, or a family member, or as a memorial for a family member or something like that. So anyway, that's the pricing for this skein. Oh, and I didn't mention that I also like to round to the nearest dollar just for the simplicity of making listings on Etsy. So that's why I have it set for 62 to 155 for this one particular skein that you saw me make entirely in this video. And now that I've made a pretty large skein and focused all my attention on making it, not taking breaks randomly, and timing it really well, I can now price out any skein that I make in the future. So here's what I did for that. So to figure out the cost per gram that I should charge for each of these tiers, and to get my range for any skein, I took the total amount that it should cost at $10 an hour and divided that number by the 61 grams that other skein weighed. And that got me to $1 and a penny. Basically, $1 per gram if I'm going to get paid $10 an hour for my time. So then I did the same calculation for each of these other price points, and that gives me my number that I can multiply by the number of grams of any skein that I make in the future to figure out my price range. So for example, this other skein that I had made previously, that I just finished just now as well, and is also available, it has a lot less yarn in it. So it's actually only 39 grams. So it will be cheaper. So for my $10 an hour price that I come up with is $39.39, which I'm going to round to 39. And it tops out at $99. So, you know, it is a small amount of yarn. It's not going to crochet very far, but you could make a few tiny things. You could make, I don't know, a little bit of jewelry with it or something as a necklace. That would be really pretty. And you could make several necklaces, that kind of thing with it. So anyway, that's basically how I do things. I'm open to making a listing in my shop for anybody who expresses an interest in wanting to buy any yarn from me, but for the time being, I'm not planning on making any listings just hoping people will find it and want to buy it. I just don't think it will work that way, but who knows, you know, if people let me know that there is an interest, then I may start doing that. So I will let this sit here in my house for a few days before I start crocheting with it, but I'm not going to give it that much time because it's fun to add to my blanket project at this point. Of course, the crocheting goes so much faster than the yarn making process, which is a bummer, but that's okay. The yarn making process right now for me is sort of like my special little pet project that feels, I don't know, it's just very satisfying. So I'm enjoying myself. That's what matters. Crochet hooks and colors bright, crafting wonders day and night. Join the fun, come see it through. Subscribe, and I'll create for you.